I don't know, but listen to the president. I think he thinks they broke the deal. So what is he talking about?
Well, what he's talking about is that China apparently came to the United States and took things off the table, things that the United States thought China had agreed to. And at this late stage in negotiations, that's bad faith.
Is that unusual in a trade negotiation? As I say, you've done a lot of these at this point. Is this a matter of it's really not heard of in a trade negotiation, or is it just that this is such a big, complicated, important one?
Yes, I mean, this does happen in the last stages of negotiations. Countries get cold feet about what they agreed to, and they try and see if they can walk some things back. But let's be honest, the magnitude and the gravity of this negotiation and the implications if this thing breaks down is so much more extensive than with any other trade negotiation. And the fact that about 16 hours away, we may see tariffs increase and over $200 billion worth of imports from China. The stakes are high now.
So you make the point, it's midnight tomorrow. The U.S. has officially issued the notice. It's 12:01 tomorrow. They're going to impose these increased tariffs. Can Humpty Dumpty be put back together again in that short a time with Liu He in town?
Well, the one thing I've learned in trade negotiations, nothing's over until it's over. So we have the Vice Premier Liu He coming here to meet with Lighthizer and Mnuchin later today. Let's see what he brings. He may be able to convince the administration that they can head towards some kind of successful conclusion. But it's difficult. This is going to be difficult, and particularly given the latest development of taking things off the table.
Well, Wendy, the way I've heard it, at least, I don't know what you've heard, is what's happened is they sit down, they talk with each other, they think they have an agreement, and then they go back and draft it, and the Chinese come back with a draft, and the U.S. says, boy, that's not what it says. If that's the problem, how can they get that resolved in the next day and a half? Because the U.S. is going to say, you're going to do the same thing again. You can tell me that, Liu He, but once you bring back the draft, it's not going to say what we said.
Yeah, well, my understanding this time around, this was actually China sending back a draft and actually crossing out stuff that they agreed to. So it's a little different than what you said. But still, I mean, Liu He can come and he can say, OK, now we can accept that language. Maybe he can say, I can't accept it that way, but here's an alternative to achieve the same objective. Or maybe he comes forward with a package of how to resolve all the outstanding issues, and then the U.S. is kind of faced with a decision. Is this something they can work with, or is this something that is just not is unacceptable, and they're willing then to go ahead down the tariff route? And let's be clear, China said last night it is going to respond with counter-retaliation. High stakes.
But can President Xi do that? That would make President Trump happy. Can President Xi do that without appearing to his country that he's basically caved in to the President of the United States?
Well, exactly. He's going to, China's going to have to look very carefully at this deal and whether it looks like China did this deal because it's in its own interest, or they did this deal in response to U.S. pressure. So again, the pressure is enormous on both sides now, and they're both facing a serious escalation of tariffs and other measures that are not only going to affect China and the United States, but are going to affect the markets, global growth, the Asia-Pacific region, U.S. consumers, U.S. workers, U.S. businesses. Important day today in trade talks.